They say curiosity killed the cat, and in my case it almost killed me. Or at least, it killed a part of me I'll never get back. This isn't some campfire story, folks. This is about a day I wish I could erase from my memory. A discovery I made that unraveled something truly, fundamentally wrong. It started, as many nightmares do, in a place of supposed peace. The woods. It was a Tuesday. Just a regular Tuesday afternoon. I'd decided to take a hike, clear my head. My usual route through the old Blackwood Forest, the one less traveled. It's always quiet there. A perfect escape from the city noise. I was about 2 miles in, nearing the ancient oak that marks the halfway point, when I saw it. Half buried beneath a pile of damp leaves and tangled roots lay a small rectangular object. At first, I thought it was just a piece of old discarded lumber, maybe a broken birdhouse. But as I nudged it with my boot, a glint of black plastic caught my eye. It was a VHS tape. No label, no title, just a blank, worn-out case covered in grime and what looked suspiciously like dried mud or something darker. The plastic felt cold, almost unnervingly so, despite the warm afternoon air. My first instinct was to just leave it, toss it deeper into the undergrowth and forget about it. But then that insidious whisper of curiosity began. Who would leave a VHS tape out here? Why? What was on it? I took it home. My old VCR, tucked away in the attic, suddenly had a purpose again. I dusted it off, connected it to my ancient CRT TV, the kind with the static hum that always promises an adventure. There was a knot of unease in my stomach, a premonition, but the pull was too strong. I had to know. The tape slid into the VCR with a groan. The TV screen erupted in a blizzard of white noise. For a moment, I considered pulling it out. This was probably just some garbage, a home video from decades ago, ruined by time and the elements. But then, the static shifted. It wasn't just random noise. There was a signal, faint, distorted, but definitely there. The hum intensified. A low, guttural vibration that seemed to resonate more in my chest than in my ears. The picture slowly cleared, resolving into a grainy, almost monochromatic image. It was dark, very dark. The camera was pointed at the ground, swaying slightly, as if being held by someone walking unsteadily. All I could make out were the blurry outlines of trees and fallen leaves. The same woods I'd just been in. The heavy breathing started then. Shallow, ragged gasps, like someone struggling for air, and the footsteps, slow, deliberate, dragging. The camera continued to sway, occasionally tilting upwards just enough to show fleeting glimpses of barren branches against a bruised, twilight sky. No sound of wind, no birds, just the breathing, the footsteps, and that suffocating hum. Then, about 10 minutes in, the camera dipped sharply. A stumble, and for a split second, the lens caught something on the forest floor. It was too quick, too dark, too distorted to make out clearly, but it looked organic and wrong. A choked gasp came from the person holding the camera, followed by a sickening sound, like something wet being dragged. Then silence, utter, complete silence, for about 5 seconds. When the picture returned, the camera was still, unnaturally still. It was pointed directly at the base of a massive, gnarled tree. The darkness was absolute around it, swallowing all detail, and then the whine started. A high-pitched, almost imperceptible sound, like a dying animal or a faulty electrical current. It was barely audible, but it burrowed into my skull, making my teeth ache. The glow. From behind the tree, a faint, reddish light began to pulse. It was so dim, so diffuse, I almost thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But it was there, pulsing, like a slow, dying heartbeat. And then, the clicking. A soft, wet clicking, irregular, as if something was moving or eating. Camera began to shake, violently. The breathing returned, but it wasn't ragged anymore. It was a terrified, whimpering sound. The reddish light behind the tree swelled, and a grotesque, elongated shadow seemed to crawl out from behind it, stretching towards the camera lens. And then I heard it. A low, guttural moan. It wasn't human. It was something ancient, something that shouldn't exist. The shriek. It wasn't from the person holding the camera. It came from whatever was behind that tree. A sound of pure, unadulterated agony and rage. The screen exploded in static, tearing apart the image, blurring everything into a chaotic mess of pixels and noise. Then, with a final, sickening thump, the screen went black. Utterly, completely black. The VCR stopped. I sat there in the dark for what felt like hours. My heart was pounding like a drum against my ribs. My hands were clammy, and a cold sweat drenched me. I hadn't moved. I couldn't move. The silence in my apartment after that cacophony was deafening, but it was worse than the noise. Because in the silence, my mind started to fill in the blanks. The heavy breathing, the stumbling, the wet, dragging sound, the distorted flash, the whine, the clicking, the moan, the shriek. I tried to tell myself it was a hoax, a well-made independent film, a prank, but the feeling of dread that had settled deep in my bones wouldn't budge. I couldn't shake the image of that stretched shadow, that pulsating red light, and the sounds. Those sounds were burned into my auditory memory. Every creak of my floorboards, every distant siren, every rustle of leaves outside my window suddenly sounded sinister. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that dark, swaying forest. Every time I heard a sound, I expected the heavy breathing, the wet clicking. I started leaving all the lights on, not just in my room, but the entire apartment. I felt watched, like something had followed me back from that tape. It's been weeks since then. I still sleep with the lights on. I don't go into the woods anymore. I can't. The very thought of those trees, those shadows, makes my skin crawl. That innocent hike, that harmless curiosity, opened a door to something I was never meant to see, never meant to hear. I threw the tape away. Or rather, I tried to. I put it in a secure container, taped it shut, and left it at a public disposal site, miles from my home. But even as I drove away, I felt a lingering chill, a sense that it didn't matter, that whatever was on that tape, whatever that darkness was, it had already seeped into my world. This is why I regret watching it, because some things, once seen, can never be unseen, and some sounds once heard can never be unheard. Some doors once opened can never truly be closed. And now, every time the wind rustles through the trees, I can almost hear that heavy breathing and the clicking. Always the clicking.